Rain blurred the world into streaks of silver, and Daniel Hale had to squint just to keep the truck between the lines of the road. Every pothole sent a shudder through the old suspension, rattling something loose inside the dashboard. He could hear it clinking, another thing to fix, another thing he couldn't afford. The storm had rolled in faster than the radio had warned, turning the narrow mountain road into a river of mud and streaming water. "Dad," Eli's voice trembled from the back seat. "Yeah, buddy, is it okay that the lights keep flickering?" "They're just old, not broken," Daniel said, though the right headlight was threatening to die. "We're fine." Eli didn't look convinced. He curled deeper into the blanket, trying to pretend he wasn't scared. Daniel wished he could do the same. He felt like he'd been trying not to drown for years, financially, emotionally, legally. This storm was only the weather's way of reflecting everything else in his life. He tightened his grip on the wheel, leaning toward the glass to see better. Floodwater splashed up in sheets. Trees swayed violently on either side, throwing shadows that made his heart jump. If they were stranded out here, no, he couldn't think about that. Not with Eli in the car. Not with the hearing coming up. Not with the possibility that tomorrow night he might lose the one person who kept him going. The road curved sharply. Daniel slowed, breath hitching as the tires slid for a fraction of a second before catching again. "It's all right," he said under his breath. "Just take it slow. Just get home." And then he saw her. A figure in the darkness, arms waving desperately. Daniel slammed the brakes. The truck fishtail edged slightly before stopping. For a heartbeat he thought his eyes were playing tricks, but she was real. A woman in a soaked coat, hair dripping, standing beside a silver sedan half swallowed by the muddy ditch. Her hazard lights blinked weakly behind her, flashes of panic in the storm. "Dad, what's wrong?" Eli asked. Daniel didn't answer right away. He was already shoving the door open. Rain hit him like a wall of ice. His shirt clung instantly to his skin, and the wind shoved him sideways as he jogged toward her. "Are you hurt?" he shouted over the storm. Her face was pale, but steady, strangely composed for someone stranded in weather like this. "No, just shaken. My car slid. I can't get it out, and there's no reception out here." Daniel glanced at the sedan. The front wheels were buried deep, mud swirling around them like hungry hands. No way he could tow her out with the old truck, not tonight, anyway. "You've been out here long?" he asked. "Too long," she admitted, pushing wet strands of hair from her face. Lightning flashed, illuminating her features. Sharp cheekbones, steady eyes, brows drawn in determination, not fear. Daniel hesitated. There was something about her face he recognized, though he couldn't place where. It tugged at a memory, but the storm yanked him back to reality. "Come on," he said. "I've got my kid in the truck. We'll get you into town." She hesitated, the faintest flicker of caution in her eyes. Any woman alone on a dark road would feel the same. Daniel lifted his hands slightly, palms out. "I just want to help. That storm's only getting worse." She gave a small nod. "I'm Margaret." "Daniel," he said, "watch your step, the mud here is nasty." She slipped once, and he steadied her by the elbow. Her coat was freezing to the touch. Together they fought through the wind back to the truck. He opened the passenger door, bracing it against the gusts. Inside, Eli stared at her with round eyes. "Hi," she said with surprising warmth despite her chattering teeth. He peeked shyly from behind the blanket. "Hi." Daniel got in, slamming the door. For a moment the small cab was filled with nothing but their labored breathing and the roar of rain on metal. "You're freezing," he said, reaching to crank the heater. "Sorry it takes a while to warm up. It's got personality." Margaret tried to laugh, but her teeth clicked together. "Trust me, this is paradise compared to out there." They started down the road again, slower this time. It was awkward at first, three strangers jammed together in a beat-up truck in the middle of a storm, but it didn't stay awkward. "Do you live nearby?" she asked, studying the worn interior, the duct-taped glove box, the little hand-drawn picture of a dog clipped to the vents. "Few miles out," Daniel said. "Right near the ridge. And you were out driving in this?" He stiffened slightly. "Work. Needed to pick up a check. They closed early because of the weather, so I'll have to come back tomorrow." Her gaze flicked to the tightness in his jaw. She didn't pry, but she didn't look away either. It made him oddly nervous. Eli chimed in from the back. "Dad's good at fixing things. Even the stuff our landlord says is supposed to be broken." "Is that so?" she asked gently. Daniel let out a small embarrassed breath. "Kids exaggerate." "Not really," Eli said. "He fixed the heater when it broke. And the sink. And the stairs. And, all right, buddy," Daniel said quickly, But Margaret was smiling now, an expression soft but intent, like she was storing every detail. A gust of wind slammed the side of the truck. Eli flinched. Margaret twisted in her seat to comfort him. "You're safe," she said. "Your dad knows how to take care of you." Daniel felt that one deep in his chest. Most adults didn't say things like that to him. Most adults didn't believe it. As they drove, the storm thickened, forcing them to crawl forward. Margaret watched him with the same careful, assessing expression. Not judgment. Something else. Something he couldn't decipher. "Town's another 15 minutes, Daniel said. "But honestly, the roads might flood by then. You can stay with us tonight. If that's all right." "Are you sure?" she asked. "Safer than getting stuck again." She considered him for a beat. Then nodded. "Thank you. I appreciate it." The last miles felt quieter somehow. Almost peaceful despite the chaos outside. Margaret kept glancing at him, but not in fear, not anymore. More like she was trying to understand him. And Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that he should know who she was. That her face was important. That helping her might change something in his life in ways he couldn't yet imagine. But he pushed the thought away as his house came into view, warm light glowing through the windows. For now, she was simply a stranded woman. And he was simply a man doing the right thing. Neither of them knowing the storm wasn't the most life-changing thing that would happen that night. "Would you like me to expand scene 2 next to match the style and length?" Morning crept into the house slowly, like it was afraid to disturb the quiet that followed the storm. Pale sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, settling on the worn wooden table Daniel had sanded and varnished himself years ago. The storm's rage had passed, but the heaviness in his chest remained, an older storm, one he'd been living in long before the rain began. He stood at the counter, staring at the sputtering coffee maker as if willing it to brew faster. His hands were still trembling slightly, not from cold but from the familiar weight of dread. Tomorrow was coming too soon. Tomorrow a judge would decide whether he was enough for his son. Whether he deserved to keep the little life he'd built from the scraps of the one he lost. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. "Good morning," Margaret said, voice smooth and rested in a way that didn't quite match the chaos of last night. He turned. She was wearing his flannel shirt layered over her own clothes, they'd been too soaked to sleep in. Somehow the shirt made her seem less like a stranger, less like someone carved from poise and precision. More human, but still, out of place here. Too polished for his cracked floor kitchen, too composed for his mismatched chairs and fading curtains. "Morning," he answered stiffly, handing her a mug. "It's not fancy coffee or anything. It's warm." "That's enough," she said, fingers curling around it. They stood in silence for a moment, steam rising between them. The house was unusually still. Eli and the dog were still asleep in the living room, curled up together under a heap of blankets like a pair of hibernating animals. Margaret took a slow sip. "You have a cozy home." He huffed a short laugh. "That's one word for it." "I mean it," she said. "It feels lived in. Safe. Safe." He didn't think anyone had used that word about his life in a long time. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Thanks for being patient last night. Roads weren't great. You saved me from a miserable situation. I'm the one who owes you patience." He shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. Anyone would have stopped. Her eyes held his for a beat too long, just enough that he felt something tighten in his stomach. "Not anyone," she said quietly. He broke eye contact first, clearing his throat. "I've gotta pick up a check today. The place closed early yesterday. If I don't get paid, the court'll say I'm unstable." "Again, the court," she repeated, her voice shifting so subtly that he didn't notice at first. "Custody hearing," Daniel said with a sigh. "Tomorrow morning. Last one." He rubbed the back of his neck, trying not to sound like he wanted someone to comfort him. "I've been fighting to keep Eli for nearly a year now. His mom's in rehab, and her parents think I'm not enough." He gestured vaguely around the kitchen. "This house, this job, this life, none of it looks good on paper." She studied him with an expression he couldn't read. Something between concern and contemplation. "Do you really believe that?" she asked. He blinked. "Believe what?" "That you're not enough." Daniel felt his throat tighten, and he looked away. "It's not really about what I believe. Judges don't care about what's in here." He tapped his chest. "They care about what's written in reports. Income, stability, perfect homes, perfect parents. And you don't think you're a good parent?" She pressed gently. "I think I'm doing everything I can," he said, voice low. "I think I'd tear down mountains with my bare hands for my kid. But effort doesn't always win." He expected her to drop the subject, but she didn't. Instead, she stepped closer, her presence steady in a way that felt strangely grounding. Daniel, she said slowly, you kept him calm through a storm when most adults would panic. You gave a stranger shelter, someone you didn't know, someone who could have been anyone. You stayed kind. You stayed steady. That matters. He swallowed hard. Praise always hit him harder than criticism, it made him feel too seen. Before he could respond, Eli burst into the kitchen with the dog trailing behind him, tail wagging. Margaret, you're still here. Her entire face softened. I am. And I slept very well, thanks to you sharing your blankets. I didn't want you to freeze, Eli said simply, as if it were obvious. Margaret crouched to his level. You're very thoughtful, just like your dad. Daniel's chest tightened again. How many times could one morning make him feel raw? He nudged Eli lightly. Go get dressed, buddy. We might need to drive Margaret into town. When the boy left, the house went quiet again. Margaret stood slowly, smoothing the borrowed shirt. There's something I need to tell you, she said. His stomach dropped. He didn't know why, but dread crawled up his spine. Maybe she had someone waiting for her. Maybe she didn't want to get involved with people like him. Maybe he'd overstepped by offering his home. Maybe. Daniel. Her voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. I recognized you this morning. He froze. Recognized me from where? He asked, though he already feared the answer. She exhaled, and her posture shifted. Shoulders straightened, chin lifted slightly. The softness didn't leave her eyes, but something sharper surfaced beneath it, something unmistakable. It hit him like a blow. You're from the courthouse, he said hoarsely. I've seen you. On the wall. In the courtroom. Yes, she said quietly. I'm Judge Margaret Alden. Silence swallowed the kitchen. Daniel's mug slipped slightly in his hand before he tightened his grip. Judge Alden, he repeated, barely audible. You're the one presiding over my case. Yes. He took a step back without meaning to. The room felt too small, too bright, too real. So last night, you knew. You knew who I was. No, she said quickly. Not last night. I didn't recognize you in the storm. I was cold, exhausted, soaked. This morning, when I saw your face clearly, when I remembered your name, I realized it. He rubbed his face hard, trying to breathe. And what, was this some test? Some way to see if I'm a good Samaritan or something? Her expression softened. No test. Just life. Just circumstance. He shook his head. You shouldn't be here. This is. Daniel, she interrupted, stepping closer. Last night showed me things I never see in case files. The way you calmed your son. The way he trusts you. The way you give even when you have so little. He didn't answer. He couldn't. I won't base my ruling on last night, she said firmly. That wouldn't be right, but I will walk into that courtroom tomorrow knowing the man behind the paperwork. Knowing the father you are, not the one reports paint. A tremor ran through him. Hope and fear tangled in his chest, making it hard to breathe. You really mean that? He whispered. Yes, she said, voice steady. You deserve to be seen. And tomorrow, you will be. Daniel closed his eyes, letting the weight of her words settle. When he opened them again, she was still there, soft morning light behind her, his flannel hanging loosely on her frame, her gaze warm, steady, impossibly understanding. For the first time in months, the future didn't look like a locked door. It looked like a horizon. A chance. A path forward he might actually reach. Thank you, he said, voice breaking just slightly. Margaret offered a small, almost private smile. Get your check, she said gently. Be ready for tomorrow. And Daniel, don't be afraid. But he was. Only now, for the first time, he wasn't afraid alone. Would you like image prompts, a third scene, or a romantic continuation?